you just your
Low IQ.
mindset won't allow you to open up and hear other people's positions. So I've always wanted to have dialogue, especially in this setting. And I think because of what council culture is all about, I think we can even dive into is really not just so like we live in a cancel, as we know, a cancel generation, and you've been canceled. I've been canceled. You've handled it and bounced back many times. People say I've done the same. So I definitely want to hear some tips on how to uncancel oneself. But even in going through those processes, you know, what that does to us mentally. And I don't think people really get a chance to hear about that because, you know, I'm all for accountable culture. You know what I mean? If there's something that has gone wrong, then we need to correct those wrongs. And I think as you being a truth seeker and a truth teller, no one likes to spew lies and things that aren't factual. But when your truth is strong, a lot of people want to steer you in a different direction.
Could word salad
like
Nick Cannon, bro. Word salad like a motherfucker. Sometimes I'll be like, bro, what? Get on what you're trying to say, G.
All right, Nick.
It's like you're trying to sound too well spoken, and you're making yourself sound just like stupid sometimes. Like you're talking in circles.
I've seen that happen to you.
Saying the same thing.
But before we even dive into that, I would love to dive into the state of the world currently and how you see it. I mean, I've already seen you speak out, but clearly we're just on the heels of, you know, assassination attempt at the former president, Donald Trump, which I know you support strongly. And you've said so many things. And then even still being the political realm that we're in right now, what should people be thinking about? What should people be doing considering where we are today?
I think, it is a very scary realization. You know, you hear about these things growing up, and the majority of us weren't alive when, you know, JFK was shot. So we have no living memory of that. None of us were alive when Abraham Lincoln was shot. You know, you hear about assassination attempts and it feels far away. Like it doesn't feel tangible.
Right.
And now it's tangible. Now you recognize that this is a person who the entire mainstream media apparatus, from the moment he announced that he was running, has not let up on, right?
Right.
Demonizing him, demonizing any person that supports him.
Right.
Trying to pretend that there is some parallel between him and Adolf Hitler, trying to pretend that you can draw parallels between him and every slave owner that ever existed in the South. Fully disruptive to harmony in the nation.
Right.
And now many of us had feared that this would happen. We feared that and we refer to this as the deep state because there is a deep state. You know, when we're talking about the deep state, we're talking about the intelligence agencies.
Right.
That they would do anything, as many people have explicitly stated,
right,
to stop him from getting into office again. And then we see this scenario where there's a lone shooter, quote unquote,
right,
lone shooter, who goes for it. And I don't think we're clear yet on what the details are because a lot of that doesn't make sense to me as someone who's been around the president. There's just no way that you'd be able to scale a roof. In the Secret Service.
I mean, we literally see videos of people saying, "Hey, do you guys see that guy right there?" Like, so.
Right. And so somebody allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think what people should be doing now is examining their own psyche. I think in the beginning, they called a lot of people conspiracy theorists.
Right.
And that stuff landed in 2016, maybe landed a little bit in 2018.
Right.
Don't think it's landing anymore.
Well, I've always been...
not everything's been proven true at this point. All the conspiracy theorists is low-key been blowing up. And it's kind of, mainstream media's fault. Let's be real. If they'd have just told the truth, we'd have never got to the point where we're having all these so-called people who spreading misinformation blowing up. Well, because y'all are the ones who's spreading misinformation. To where you kind of left a bad taste in the people's mouth, and now they're going somewhere else. Oh, it's y'all fault, not ours.
And one
Blame yourself.
Anti-authoritarian, but one who never trusted the government or media. And I think that's probably where you and I agree. And I would love to hear your take on it. Like, who is the stronger enemy? Is it the government or is it the media?
Well, they're working together. And we know that for a fact. That's not a conspiracy because you could, while you're home, look up Operation Mockingbird. I think this is one of the things that I care the most about is becoming educated outside of a textbook, outside of the public school system, because the government controls what you're learning. This is the purpose of the establishment of the Department of Education. Your government is deciding what you're going to learn in the textbook.
When
and
you're
you
going
are
to learn
accepting that as a reality. And it's very far from reality. It's very far from what actually happened. You're basically reading a fairy tale, a fairy tale.
They create the curriculum, they standardize the curriculum, they tell you when you're going to learn it. They have standardized tests to reinforce the information into your brain, drill it into you, inculcate you. Bro, it is kind of crazy, the indoctrination that they go through from, what, K4 and on?
Yep. Just for 10 years later, for none of it to be true.
And for it to all just unravel.
Man, like, bro, it's like when you were in school and then they told you Pluto's a planet, and then 5 years later, now it's not. It's like, oh, really now?
Nah,
okay.
Facts, big facts.
Or physics. All right, the laws of physics. But now we got spaceships flying through the air at Mach 12,000 or something. It's like, oh, okay. So I guess physics ain't looking too good now.
All throughout school about what happened in human history.
The winners rewrite history.
That's exactly right. And so it's important to, at the very least, dabble in what they've declassified. And so one of the things that was declassified by the CIA was Operation Mockingbird. After JFK was shot, the CIA established paid journalists on their payroll, tons of money to them, to just Mockingbird, say the same talking points the state wanted said. First and foremost, why would the government do that after JFK was allegedly shot and they didn't know who shot him?
Right.
Well, they knew who shot him, and they needed to make sure that the people believed whatever narrative was being peddled. So you look at that declassification and you see who they were paying. New York Times, the same publications that are telling everybody that if Trump gets elected,
Kirsten,
it's going to be the end of the world. And that should signal to you, after doing that research, that essentially, and this is my perspective, there's zero evidence they ever discontinued that program. In fact, it's probably only gotten bigger and more varied. And what I mean by that is they probably even have podcasters now as a part of Operation Mockingbird, probably streamers as a part of Operation Mockingbird. But it is all about their belief and their understanding that if you say something enough times, it becomes true.
Yeah.
And we have seen that writ large.
In psychology, that's the illusory truth effect. I think they call it. That the more you say something, the truer it becomes.
And people will, and we have seen this, not believe their own eyes if somebody says something enough. People legitimately felt, and this gets back to what you were saying about the hatred. You're like, I didn't understand what was happening. I understood what was happening. Every single day, the media was telling people, she hates black people. She wants to help black people. So eventually, with enough insistence, they knew that Black America was going to believe it. And sure enough, Black America bought it. This must be a girl who wants to help create a society that she can't live in. I mean, it's so foolish on its face that you would think, okay, no, why would any person want to be like, hey, I really want to bring back white supremacy. I just want to make sure that I'm segregated across the street from you. Your common sense should come online, but it doesn't, because that is studies that have been done into how you can infiltrate somebody's psyche.
So and to bring it up, and even your book, you speak about the resilience and the strength of our ancestors, and really standing firm for them today for all that they went through. But it seems like, I don't know, that message kind of gets lost, or maybe because it's not so dialed in. But everything that you speak of is like, look, we went through, or our ancestors went through so much, so that we don't have the victim mentality any longer. And I think that might be a little bit where, if it was a little clearer for Black America to know that, no, she's actually speaking the same ideas of a Malcolm X or ideas of the strength of what we've been through. So therefore now,
whoa there, Nick Ken, don't get yourself canceled now, G. I mean, come on now, dog. Hey, we agree with Candace too, but I mean, look how they come after us. We're a disgrace to our race, bootlickers, coons, Uncle Ruckuses. I'll take the Uncle Ruckus one. That's my favorite one. I'll gladly be an Uncle Ruckus, though.
Hilarious.
And shout out Seth Troutman, Set and Key, Make Diamond, your secretary/manager. Man, that's already been done. But I appreciate you, Seth. Don't worry. It's already been done. We
have to, even it's probably more on the Booker T. Washington approach more than the W.E.B. Du Bois approach. But it's like, look, we can build our own. We don't have to be victims. And I think probably during that time when you were having, going back and forth with BLM, I think it just was so, the tension was thick. So that I think they were missing the message that, yo, you can have a different perspective and still be on the same mission. You know what I mean? Because I think ultimately we are Black in
David, what's
America.
up?
So it is what it is. There's no hiding that, but it's like there's multiple ways to kind of operate. And I always, like I said, I believe there's a lot of people who have the Du Bois mentality, and there's a lot of people who have the bootstraps mentality that Booker T. Washington was talking about. And I feel like the ideas of conservatism are really more rooted in how we all kind of, as traditional Black people, come up. Like we have vocational skills, we have the ideas of like what you grew, or your grandfather grew up in North Carolina, right? Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it seems like that was somebody who was really influential in your life and in your perspective. It's like my grandfather is from North Carolina as well. It's like, yo, they gonna get out there and they gonna farm, they gonna crop, they gonna do it themselves, and that mentality kind of gets lost in a post civil rights generations, when they say like, oh yeah, we are owed certain things, we do need certain things, but I do kind of feel like it's almost this, I don't know how to say it, like, because or you put it as a victim mentality, but because the truths are the truths. We see where it's harsh, and we see that this system was not designed for us to win, but it's not really designed for anyone to win except for that top 3 or 1%. So,
and yet remarkably, and this is the thing that I can't understand, because it's
now when he talks about that, there is some obvious disparities, there is some systemic issues, I will say, but it affects everyone, and it really more so depends on your socioeconomic status rather than your race. It's not like it targets any race specifically. And I would say in the modern era, 2024, bro, anybody could get a bag, simply put. We got the age of access, internet is widely available. Anybody could tap into a bag.
I think this was she was honestly about to say, though, because she said remarkably, and I'm gonna say this, remarkably, most like millionaires came from nothing. Most millionaires were born poor or had a bad background. Like, they didn't come from the best. And it's kind of funny because we know people who were poor made it rich. We know people who were rich and somehow made it poor due to their decisions. So can we all just stop talking about, where you come from? Let's talk about the decisions you're making in life. Because the whole where you come from is just like another excuse to just, I don't know, not succeed and self-loathe.
Paradox. Black America will say, this system wasn't built for us, and yet they insist on more system. Right. The first thing they do is say, we need reparations. Well, how's that going to happen? We need more government. And I just go, have you paid attention to anything that has happened in this country? Have you paid attention and gone backward and understood how you got into this predicament? How you could possibly think it's almost an abusive relationship. Like the solution is, I just got to go back to that person that just keeps punching me in the face. That's where Black America is at right now. Right. It's almost I understand it, to be clear. I am compassionate in understanding, because of how much I've studied the history of psychology, that it was nearly impossible for Black Americans not to land up on the left-leaning side, not to believe that, white people were their number one enemies. They sat down and thought, you get these people into public school and we will fill them with garbage for the first 18 years of their lives, right? So that's hard to undo, right? That you're being intentionally targeted in a government classroom, and they are selling to you every day that you are a victim on purpose. This is they want you to come out the other side and insist on more governance, because that's the ultimate goal is to recreate slavery and not even have Black Americans know that they're slaves. The perfect slave is a person that doesn't know they're a slave, right? And that's Black America. Black America will literally say the absolute most about how bad government is while insisting that we have more government. Like, welfarism did this to Black America. It is a fact that in the 1950s, under Jim Crow, that Black Americans were outpacing white Americans in terms of growth. That's why... Because
we had to work with each other. And then when welfare came into there, let's say this, some people chose to work with the government instead of working with their community. Then it's crazy. The same people that decided to work with their government instead of working with their community are now complaining about the state of their community. Wild.
Most people have fond memories, and I could be dating myself right now, but I'm 35, of your grandparents, like better values, going to church. My grandfather started a business despite the fact that he started a sharecropping farm. You know, faith was at the center of the family. And then you go, what happened? Well, what happened was, despite there being Jim Crow, or because of Jim Crow, Black Americans couldn't rely on government. There is this simple thing that when your back is against the wall, you will fight, you know? And so then LBJ, who was the most racist president, I mean, this man was dropping the hard R-N word for breakfast every day. He hated Black Americans. And yet, we learned in public school that he was our savior because he inked the Civil Rights Bill. But he had to.
That wasn't by choice.
Literally, he had a figurative gun to his head. And there's more stuff that he did in terms of trying, you know, the draft, wanting Black Americans to die first in Vietnam, because he was so committed to racism. And he said, signing this, you know, I'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And in one fell swoop, he signed welfarism in. And that's what broke down our families. That is the pipeline
to prison. Took the Black father out the household.
Yes, the denigration, and that is why I think actually I've landed better amongst Black males than amongst Black females, is because I understand that the denigration of the Black man is a big piece of this, right? It was intentional, it was targeted. And media plays a role in this. Hip hop plays a role in this. All of this is by design. It's not by accident. And it's just so foolish to think that the solution is going to be the very people who sat down and put together this Machiavellian plan.
Right. So it's like they say the schools and organized religions.
You know, it's crazy. I could tell the liberal hive mind got a Black man when, well, one, of course, he's liberal, scrawny, fat, or gay. That's how I know they've been got. Now, if they're all, you know, if they're like 3 out of the 4, yeah, you've been got. I'm sorry. Like, shoot, hey, I ain't saying you can't be gay. I'm just saying though, you at least don't be fat and scrawny and gay. It's like, damn.
Special honors to the mama's boy and the man who lets his female dominate the relationship. Special honors to those men.
Man,
close runner up.
Really. The mindset, the slavery mindset. So it's like if they say if they tell you what to learn, that's slavery. If they teach you how to learn, that's true education. So in that process, and even in the system that we're currently in, and even I was kind of leading with that question a little bit when I said, like, who's the bigger enemy? Is it the media or is it government? But you said both, which is a great answer, but you are also a strong voice in both of those spaces. So how do you operate knowing that the power that you have, and it's so, you know, you persuade a lot of people, you have a lot of followers, and you say a lot of things that make a lot of sense, that make people, that either scare people, they either enrage people, or people, you shift a lot of mentalities. In that setting, though, and knowing this is, as I believe you've talked about it before, is like spiritual warfare. How do you deal with that every day? Getting up with like that type of weight on your shoulders, knowing like this is deeper than just two sides. Like, it's real spiritual warfare going on, and you have to figure out manipulated entertainment that we call media.
And make sure to like the video, guys. Go ahead and double tap that screen for me. The 3 dots up there in the corner, man. Let's get more people in on this conversation, man. Let's get 300 likes. Let's go.
Is, you know, but you're right there in the center of it, and people are probably trying to use you constantly, and when they can't use you, they want to silence you. So how do you deal with that?
You know, I've never had an issue, and I think this just boils down to character, and I do think that it could be genetic. I think I really am like my granddad's granddaughter. He passed a few years ago, but I have never struggled with going the way of the truth. Like, I genuinely, there could not be an amount of money offered to me that I would say something that I know to be untrue. If I was willing to do that, which to me is quite literally selling your soul.
Right.
I think when you tell a lie, it does something to you, spiritually.
Yeah.
I would much rather, I've always been this way. I'm too honest is actually what my problem is. Like, Kanye once said in a song, I suffer from realness. That line hits. I'm like, I actually suffer for it. Like, if I could just shut up and peddle the lines and let everybody do the thing, and Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, God, my life would be so much easier. They would have me on the cover of Vogue, Cosmopolitan. She's speaking out about my life would be amazing. But that's not the path for me. I've never struggled with being myself and telling the truth. And I've been that way. Even if I do something wrong, I always tell myself instantly, because I don't like the feeling. Like it feels cancerous to me. I do think that lies build up in your spirit like a cancer.
Right.
And so it's shocking to me when I see people commit themselves to that for comfort, because you maybe you feel outwardly comfortable, like maybe like the house is bigger and you're getting more money, but inwardly you have to be dying when you know something to be untrue. Worse than that, not only do you know it to be untrue, but you're then dragging people into a pit of hell, right? There were people who genuinely believed that Black Lives Matter was going to be a solution. And I don't fault those people. I just want to be clear.
Like, I was definitely...
Bro, all right, look, to say Black Lives Matter, okay, cool. Yeah, that was the movement. But the organization did more damage to the black community than ever. I mean, to defraud everybody for $80 million and then go spend it on mansions and, well, LGBTQ and trans organizations is a bit disrespectful. It's a bit disrespectful. But okay, though. Okay, that's what y'all decided to do off that man's death? Say less.
One of those people.
And that's fine. People that genuinely believe that, I don't care. I always say, I'm like, this person actually believes that.
Yeah.
But then there were the people who knew.
Right.
Who knew that it was an absolute farce.
Right.
Who knew that it was going to result in the same thing that happened in the 60s. I said it from day one. Black American neighborhoods are going to get burned to the ground. Then there's going to be the quote unquote white flight. You're going to have the businesses moving out of the neighborhoods. There's going to be desolate. And it's going to take decades to repair it. And then everyone's going to look around and go, what do we get for it? And the money's going to have evaporated. No one's going to wear that, but it definitely is not going into Black America.
Well, I think people didn't understand the political approach of it. They
were raged. They were enraged.
Yeah, they understood that they needed to utilize their voice. They didn't know that they were being politicized, as they were like, they said, we're angry and we're upset. Therefore, we know we need change.
And that's toddler behavior, right? So that's what I say. What they're doing right now systematically is they're turning Black Americans into toddlers, okay?
Facts.
So you look at the literacy rates right now.
Like, literally, it's like you just can't tell them no and without them crying about it. It's like, bro, I remember, like, bro, black people are toddlers about reparations. No reparations, no vote. I want my reparations. I want my money. It's like, come on, y'all sounding like a toddler version of Mr. Krabs at this point. It's like, I'm confused. There's more important things than that this country needs. And honestly, the reparations is only going to hurt the country. So I'm really wondering where y'all head at sometimes. But it is what it is. We just need to focus on our country first.
40% of students cannot pass a basic literacy exam. It's more abysmal even in terms of mathematics in America. I think in California, it's the worst, by the way. Something like 70% of Black boys can't pass a reading exam.
Wow.
Slave code. Don't teach a slave how to learn how to read. Why? Because then you'll tell them what the shadows on the wall mean, right?
Yeah.
Here you go. Shadow, yeah, literally Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
Right? You will tell them what it means.
Shout out Candace for referencing the allegory of the cave. Shout out S.E.T for exposing us to that, because that is a lot of folks. You expose them to some new information that challenges their belief, and it's just like the reaction is knee-jerk. The reaction is vitriolic. They damn near hate you for exposing them to a new way of thinking. It's like, oh my God, no, don't tell me the truth. Let me be blind. Let me go back to the lies, the comforting lies. What are you trying to do putting me on to the truth? It hurts. It burns for a lot of these folks, man. TDS. And shout out D-Lou, $10, man. He ain't got too much to say. He just wanted to show some support. Oh, no, my bad, Chad. I was just saying, like, shout out Candace for referencing the allegory of the cave, because it is very true. And shout out Vlastine for putting us onto that. And it is a lot of people's reaction when you expose them to new ways of thinking. They really just have like a knee-jerk vitriolic reaction. They damn near hate you for putting them onto a new way of thinking. It's like, oh my God, no, let me go back to the comforting lies. Who are you trying to expose me to the truth? I hate you. Like, oh my, it's really tedious. Really just to be summed up and put it succinctly, it's TDS. But as well as I was saying, shout out D-Lou, $10. He ain't had too much to say. He just wanted to show some support.
I know you can't read and you're not going to understand this. That's what they're doing in Black America. But you feel emotional, right?
Hey,
you're scared,
Camaro
right?
Right?
Okay, well, what you need to do is go burn down your own neighborhoods for justice. That's toddler behavior. My child cannot read, right? So he's filled with emotions to the brim, and things don't make sense. And I expect him to throw a temper tantrum and throw himself when I say you can't have Skittles for breakfast.
But Dr. King says, like, riots are the voice of the unheard, and it's in that if you have no other tools, then you got to shake some shit up.
Well, we should take a look, because he got killed also by the CIA. But the end of that game of rioting those neighborhoods meant that all of those cities were rioted, and those cities, Detroit, Chicago, the white flight took place, the businesses left because of those civil rights riots. I am a big believer that you should use your brain, right? And I'm not sure that burning down your own neighborhood is ever a sensible thing to do. I'm not sure if burning down your own business, getting yourself arrested, getting stuff on your records is really going to make you heard. And I don't know.
It'll definitely make you heard, though.
It might feel good, like punching a wall. I mean, this is like,
it's emotional intelligence.
It's not.
No, I'm saying now that we've understand that we know what emotional intelligence is. It was a lack thereof during that
it's just
process.
Emotion.
Yeah, so.
And it feels good right away. When you're mad, punch a wall, do this, but then you got to deal with the fact that you just punched your own wall, and so who's going to fix the plaster, and how much is it going to cost you to get the handyman in here to do that? It wasn't really worth it.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you're solution oriented, but a lot of people don't have the emotional intelligence up top, and they want to say, "I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm loud," and I think a lot of people, not just in our community, but even in this political joust that's going on right now for the presidency, that's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing a lot of pointing of the fingers, we're witnessing a lot of name calling, and then now that it's gotten to a point where, people are dying. Literally, there was an assassination attempt, and on that day, people died as well. And it just shows, as everyone's saying, the rhetoric has gotten so vicious that people are really losing their lives. And not to say which side originally caused the rhetoric, but it sounds like this could be a bipartisan time that everyone is here in America likes being American. And is there an opportunity for us to all coexist as Americans and unify and utilize something like this as a wake-up call to be like, all right, so maybe the things that we can be projecting out into the world through the media and our government isn't so divisive.
Yeah, I think, once the slaves wake up and realize who the master is, there's always an opportunity.
Right.
Who
is the master?
There is a very...
Shout out to people that don't care about the narrative or don't care about labels that might be placed on them for speaking out on the truth. You got Candace Owens, you got other folks part of this movement. I like to consider Set Key Media people who like to push the truth movement as well, because bro, they like to call us detractors, dissenters, coons, Uncle Toms, but I feel like we're just truth seekers at the end of the day. And I'm not really a fan of labels, because you say you're conservative or you say Republican, they automatically label you a race hater or a race betrayer. So I would just say we're truth seekers, and we're people that like to purport the message of truth and alternative facts and the other side of the narrative that a lot of people don't like to look at or consider. And a lot of times that's all it takes. You just purport the facts, you purport what's going on, and you let the critical thinkers make the decision and leave it up to them to decide what's true from which faction or which fiction.
Very small group of powerful elite that are running the world, by the way. We're not just even talking about America. They're running the world. They are in lockstep.
Are we going the top 1%? Is this an economic thing?
Not top 1%. I am talking about behind closed doors running I mean, if you don't think that BLM was planned, like in the way that went around the world, you have to study and go back. And I say planned, when they do things like this to dominate the psyche. I mean, to completely dominate the psyche and to convince people worldwide of one theme. You can go back to the Manson murders, which didn't go down the way that you thought that they went down. That was a CIA operation to end the hippie generation, because it was love, and they wanted to go to war over in Vietnam. A very great book on that, by the way, which I've been telling people to read, is written by a man named Tom O'Neill, and it's called Chaos.
Chaos, talk about MK Ultra and all that stuff.
It's a must read.
Yeah.
Because you have to come to terms with the fact that they can just elicit an entire mass
concoct stories, I would say concoct stories and curate narratives,
bro. Oh, and use he say she say narratives.
Yeah, that's like, exactly what they do.
About he wanted Trump, he wanted Hitler's generals. Is like, no, his general said that, and I mean you can't confirm it. And it was kind of funny because one of the other people who was close to Trump all the time, he said, nah, Trump never said anything like that. So he's like, I'm trying to wonder where this guy heard that. And if you actually read what this general said, he said something like that.
Yeah.
something, not exactly that.
But it's exactly what they do. It's a diversive tactic, and they'll apply it when they see fit.
So he was pretty much comparing what Trump said to, I guess, Hitler praising his generals.
Sure.
Psychosis with one event.
So
And they've been doing it since the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, even from, like you said, MK Ultra to
He say, she
COINTELPRO to what the FBI did to Dr. King and many others. We know that these systems are in place.
Right.
And we know that, you know, it's very difficult to trust our government, especially in the Black community where we've been used as pawns for government from day one.
The Tuskegee experiment, I mean.
So, but how in the current setting, like, again, how do you even manage to be a Democrat or a Republican? Like, you can't trust either side. And it's like, you know, there's no such thing as, you know.
Because here's the thing, like, and it was funny enough, I don't think a lot of people trust the side. They more or less trust the character who's representing that side. So honestly, no, there's a lot of people who didn't honestly like the right, or who didn't even really like politics until Trump stepped in the spear. There's people, I remember back in the day with Obama, people who never voted before, only wanted to vote because Obama stepped in the spear. So it wasn't even about if they were left-leaning or right-leaning. Sometimes it was just the character of the person that they believed in. And that's really what it is sometimes. So I never really say, oh, how could you pick either side? It's like easy, because I kind of can disassociate Trump's values with the right, and I can easily disassociate some of Kamala's values with the left. And I just see which one of them stands up to what I want America to look like, and well, I choose Trump every time.
You know, two parties. It's just one party with two names.
You're
one
right.
evil party.
And to be clear, I don't trust either party either.
Right.
I mean, that's very clear that it is one party, and they just keep both sides warring with one another intentionally. But occasionally,
and democracy is an illusion.
Democracy is an illusion. Yeah. And occasionally you will see that one person falls through the cracks, and there are those people out there. This was the reason I supported Trump.
Right.
Because if Trump was a part of the club, they wouldn't have gone at him like that. They wouldn't try to lock him up. They wouldn't have tried to kill him. I mean, you know who's not in the in club, because all you have to do is see who the media is attacking. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like Thomas Massie is a congressman that I love. He's maybe the only a handful of congressmen that are not voting according to lobbying interests or blackmail interests as well. There's an entire blackmail ring that's running Hollywood and running DC as well. But that is the only way. Is you have to think through it, and you have to pause every single time the media is showing you something and they're in lockstep, and you're about to have an emotional response, and actually ask yourself, and who benefits from this emotional response?
Can I offer something else up in that thing? Because I don't disagree, but I think we do start to lean a lot more, or at least we feed the conspiracy theory father when we start to, because I've done this myself, gotten canceled by speaking that there's elites that are trying to keep us down.
How could get canceled for common sense?
But I'll say this, in hindsight, you're a person of faith. Could we lean a little bit more into the space of this is, I think you even said, I believe, like Tucker Carlson made a great point when he's literally talking about spiritual warfare. Yeah. There are greater spiritual entities that are operating, that in utilizing, instead of, I would just say that they can utilize anyone. They can utilize the media. They can utilize government. These energies that are trying to tear down humanity. Could we offer that, opposed to just saying like there's this secret room of individuals sitting there and they have all the money in the world and they're trying to...
Well, there is. But the thing is, it's like, first you have to claw back and recognize that. And the way that you do that is learning real history, right? Really, like I said,
but that could have been spirituality throughout the whole time.
Well, it is ultimately, yes. Right. So that's what the first step I'm saying. I mean, this is like, you got to go, this is what will bring you back to the Bible. I mean, the first step of this is first understanding. You got to peel it back like an onion, right? So the first layer of this is realizing that everything that you're seeing, it's just not real, right? The media, it's not real. They're being controlled. It's all an illusion. Hollywood, they're being controlled. There's an agenda. There are people in Hollywood. I mean, how is it plausible? How is it plausible that everything Hollywood promotes is antithetical to the Bible? I mean, there's got to be like just one thing that they were like, yeah, that
That's
part's true.
facts.
No, it's like they're anti-marriage.
Like, bro, yeah, these movies these days, anti-marriage, family, anti-straight. I mean,
Anti-man,
bro,
anti-nuclear family, like you said,
push gender fluidness, all that wild stuff. It's
pro
like,
LGBT.
bro, even in the most like supposedly manly movies, they're pushing this LGBTQ like
Or just
gender ideology.
The passive masculinity trope, or the I would say the subservient masculinity trope.
Oh yeah, like
How Kevin Hart
yeah,
made his movies low key
the
serving
beta
up under
male
his
every
wife,
time.
stay at home dad. Like
wife makes more. Wife is the go getter. He's a stay at home dad. Wow, I'm like, come on now. What picture does that paint of black men? Oh, y'all women is the go getters in y'all community. I'm like, man, lie again.
Marriage, they're anti-life, they're pro-transgender, it's like literally it's like someone read the Bible and then said it upside down and they go, that's Hollywood.
But this is my thing.
And then if you are, say something biblical, or you are...
Shout out Michael Ryan, man. $2. He says, bro, y'all blowing up multiple videos over 500K and 998K. Bro, we got videos at 1 million views, bro. But yeah, appreciate you, bro. Thanks for
man, appreciate that.
Thanks for bringing awareness, because you know the ops gonna say we ain't doing shit. The haters gonna say we ain't making no numbers, ain't making no noise. But man, the fans and the real ones get it. If you know, you know.
Hey,
shout out Michael Ryan.
Faithful in Hollywood, you'd be the first person to get canceled.
See, I disagree.
1 million.
Only reason because I've been in it, and as a person who's learned to attempt to walk and operate in a higher frequency, I've always said, or somebody taught me this, is like, yo, you can find the devil in anything, but you can see God in everything.
Show me God in Hollywood, please. Tell me right now. Oh, give it to me.
You can't see God in Hollywood?
I literally...
Where?
As Kanye would say, where is God in your life?
I'm like, hold on, where's God? What was the last godly movie you seen, Nick? Tell me.
He said, and it's like, where's God in all this? Like,
I mean, man...
You can't, so you'd never tell me, there's never been a film that has touched your soul so much that it actually enlightened you and inspired you.
Well, what you're give me an example, because then if you
Forrest Gump.
Let me give you, Hollywood exists to make you believe that what you're watching.
It's land of make believe.
Yeah, it is a land of make believe, but the problem is that people then think that is real. So you don't realize that there's an agenda. So you're watching a film, and I think years ago, right before the explosion of the trans agenda, which I'm adamantly opposed to, there was a film, and it won the Oscar for the first person that ever got transgendered surgery. Somebody help me here. Somebody knows this movie, no? None of y'all saw it. Yeah, I didn't watch it either. Anyways, it won an Oscar, and the guy who played the girl, or the girl played the guy, came on stage and like did this whole speech. Literally right after, it was just like transgender everywhere.
But that's a beautiful.
Now here's the problem though. That's movies. They're very influential. No matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, we've all had a movie that played in our lives that we were inspired by, fiction or nonfiction. So when you put these things in movies that are a bit, leftist, or when you put these things in movies that are degenerate, yeah. You could feed that to a kid, or I would say a more, adaptive, a person that's more easily manipulated. You can
more receptive mind.
Yeah, a more receptive mind could low-key fall into these habits or like that behavior. If you go ahead and promote it in movies, of course, like think about it like this. She's right. They didn't start promoting gay stuff, bro. Dudes weren't even kissing in movies back in the day.
Yeah.
Dudes weren't kissing in cartoons like apparently I'm hearing they are now. In kids' cartoons.
And I would say
what do you think that's promoting to the kids?
And to add on to your point, I would say this to sum it up and put it succinctly. Television, media, social media, and music is exactly this, and it is programming. It inculcates and indoctrinates us to move in one direction, one accord with the message that they purport amongst the masses.
Well said. Make sure you like the video, guys. Appreciate y'all.
It's not a beautiful story, because this is the problem. Kids grow up and TV is something that is impacting their psyche and their spirit. They don't realize it. You don't make that connection early on. You think you're watching stuff
unless they have parents that explain to them.
But that's the problem. They don't.
Right.
That's the problem. They don't.
So then that's the ultimate problem. Yes. It's not Hollywood that's the problem.
Well, Hollywood's a piece of it. So what I say is that what they've done quite brilliantly is they intentionally broke down the family, okay? because
not Hollywood. You're saying the government.
The government, yeah, the government.
know, right?
This is all government, just to be clear.
Yeah.
The government broke down the family because they knew that the youth would naturally aspire or seek out matriarchy and patriarchy elsewhere. So you don't have mom and dad at home. Who becomes mom and dad? Okay, you're the kid, you're listening to your, I sound old, Walkman, walking down the street, you know.
Right.
Now you're like, oh, when I was growing up, like it's now mom and dad, and maybe it's Biggie, it's Pac, maybe it's now for another kid, who's like the hot new artist coming up now? I don't know, who would you say is like the hot new artist these days?
Yeah, Drake, Kendrick.
Whatever, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, whoever it is, you turn these people suddenly, you're pursuing that patriarchy no matter what. So dad's not at home, you're not spending time with mom and dad, then you're getting pushed into the school system. So you're learning history a certain way, culture is impacting you a certain way.
You're seeing these movies and you're a young boy, and every man you see in these movies is a beta male or is being taken care of by a female. What are you gonna think?
Shout out Republic Room chiming in $5. Barely tolerating Nick Cannon, but glad to see Candace going on these brainwashed black platforms. Nick is a little bit more woke than I would say that common liberal. I think him even entertaining the conversation with Candace just kind of shows he's open minded at least. Advance 2024. Yep.
Oh guys, hey, appreciate you, sis.
It's all related. It's not, these things are not separate.
Because that's life.
But that's not life. It was not life. It was not
we've
life.
always had influence from entertainers and people that we looked at. You can go all the way back to Shakespeare. Like it's always our philosophers were our entertainers. People were walking around quoting Plato and Aristotle.
Entertainment is a part of life. That's correct.
Right.
But what I mean by that is Hollywood is
about money.
It's not about money.
You think it's more than money? Because everything you're saying is
100%. I think there is an agenda.
It's for the dollar. It's not to really control minds.
There was no dollar. You're trying to tell me when you and I don't know how old you are, but we got to be around the same age, graduated high school, there were this many trans kids?
Yes. It's just now that there's an opportunity for them to be expressive and they're in a safe space now, because now they were probably struggling a little bit more, but the community has always been
that's an agenda. That's an agenda. And I think
so. What would
because it's interesting when you hear people that are speaking about that agenda, like Cat Williams came out and said that he knew it was going to be a thing. Then you start realizing like they go from a movie to suddenly trying to sell it to you by telling you, oh, this person's kid is non-binary. What are you talking about? These kids are not all confused about what gender they are. You're teaching them that kids don't think like this. What do you mean? What are you non-bound to? Why are you saying this? Well, you're being attacked in your psyche in the classroom.
That's an ultimate agenda.
Hollywood,
like what is within that agenda? What's being accomplished?
What do you mean what's being accomplished?
Like why would someone set an agenda to convince?
Well, in my viewpoint, when you look at all of the agendas, the one thing that they all have in common is they're an attack on the family. So if you examine history,
the nuclear family.
Yes, and if you examine history, anytime socialism, communism, obviously the most evil ideology that's ever existed, has led to the death of 100 million people over the last 100 years. Once those communist regimes achieved power over the people, one of the first things they established was that you were not allowed to practice faith, and they would break down your family because the state wanted to become your family. They didn't want you to go to dad for advice or be sitting around with mom and dad at the table. We are your family now, right? You can read the book 1984. It kind of has this scene where it talks about how even children will tell on their parents if they're not abiding by the rules of the state. This is 1984, unfortunately, is now 2024. You saw this during COVID. And people are going to the government to, how should I live? I mean, during COVID to me was the ultimate. I thought they were flexing to really test how much power they had over how much they had achieved, how much power they had via the media. Like
how much people will blindly listen to us to their own detriment.
And y'all should go check out that J Pharma Steven Crowder we covered right here on the channel. It kind of exposed the mentality of some of these bureaucrats because it was really a flex of power. And he kind of exposed himself on camera, thought he was talking to a Tinder date, but he was really talking to one of Steven Crowder's informants. Like, yeah, we were having sex parties underneath the banks on yachts while everybody else was on lockdown and was restricted. But we were playing with drugs and having parties.
What stuck out to me was the fact, oh, no, we just got to break their will. Like, we already know. Come on now. We tell them they're not going to work. We tell them they can't go here or there. They're going to take that.
If they speak out against us, we label it as disinformation.
It's like, what you mean? Allegedly, though. Allegedly. But yeah, if they say anything about us, we'll make it real hard for them. And they got to take the shot after
Yeah, that was phase one. I mean, allegedly, purportedly, and Keys Wild speculative conspiracy theories, but that was phase one. So let's just stay tuned for the future, and we'll see what happens.
Until then, we're just speculating.
Could we get people to just do, like, it was like a game of Evil Simon Says, 6 feet social distancing, wear a mask. People were doing things. I swear, if they had come out tomorrow and said you have to hop on one foot to live, people would have been like jumping around grocery stores like that, because they wanted to test to see how quickly they could infiltrate the psyche and how people would abide, and whether they would tell one another, which they did. People were calling on their neighbors. Like, I saw 2 people walk into the house. It's funny in the retrospect, but also scary in the retrospect. Right now, people are trying to walk back. They were telling on each other, trying to get people fired. You know, I saw this person at the grocery store. They're supposed to go once a week. That to me was the ultimate flex of the arm of the state, to see how much control they had over, as my Jamaicans would say.
Well, we have been digging very deep early on in our first session. I didn't even think we was gonna get that deep that quick. But we're gonna pause here and regroup. But honestly, I mean, a lot of the things that you said strike a chord with so many. And
at least the first part.
It looks like a first part of a series they might be coming out with.
Beyond brave and courageous to speak in the way that you do. And like I said, we can agree to disagree on certain things, but I do believe that your heart is in the right place. And you know, you're someone who is seeking truth and speaking truth, and we don't have a lot of that. So I appreciate your counsel. In the next session, I want to go just as deep in that same space and even talk about your fears of being this vocal, and you know, what it has brought into your life, and how you're handling it. So we'll do that on the next session at Council Culture.
Yeah, don't worry. Whenever it comes out, we got you guys. We got you. But let's get into this Kamala Harris, because she brought out the big guns. She brought out the Queen. And yeah, she brought out the Queen. And guess what, guys? Guess what? We're now supposed to listen to Beyonce. Like Beyonce is gonna convince me to vote for Kamala. I mean, I didn't even think she's an attractive lady, but I didn't even think she was all that attractive coming out. I didn't even like her music all that much coming out. Yes, she has bangers, but come on now, come on. I was more of a Kelly Rowland. I like Kelly Rowland from the Destiny Child. That was my favorite one.
President Kamala Harris.
And thicker.
A woman who's been pushing for what this country really needs right now. Unity. It's impossible not to feel the energy in this room, the positivity, the community, the humanity. We are at the precipice of an incredible shift, the brink of history. I'm not here as a celebrity.